I never told my brother I was the one who hid Dad's last letter because he found it torn and water-stained in the attic 10 years later and thought Mom had destroyed it. I couldn't bear to admit I'd opened it first, read it alone, and couldn't forgive what it said about him. We were in the attic of the house we grew up in. Mom had been gone 3 months by then. Cancer. Quiet, fast, like she wanted to get it over with. I'd been avoiding this house since the funeral. But it was time. The realtor wanted to put it on the market and someone had to clean out the attic. Jason said he'd come help, which surprised me honestly. He always hated that house. We didn't talk much while we worked. The insulation made the air itchy and everything smelled like cardboard and old wood. We were both sweating after 20 minutes. The whole place felt like it was sagging under the weight of too many years. Jason dragged out an old metal trunk, the kind with buckles and leather corners. It made a deep creaking sound when he opened it. Jesus, he muttered, waving dust out of his face. This thing hasn't been touched in years. He pulled out a few things, old report cards, my science fair trophy, some water-damaged photo albums. And then he stopped. He reached in and held up a yellowed envelope. No stamp, just a name, faint in blue pen. To my children. He looked at it for a long time. I felt my mouth go dry. I couldn't look away from the envelope. The sight of it made my stomach twist like I was 17 again, holding it in my lap the night I found it. Jason turned it over. It's already open, he said. You see this before? I hesitated too long. He looked up at me. You didn't open this, did you? I shook my head. No, he stared at it again, the way you look at something that doesn't make sense. The paper was torn at the seal. One corner had a dark brown water stain, probably from the winter the roof leaked. I remember I almost forgot it was up there. Until now. Jason sighed. Probably Mom. She must have opened it and never told us. Figures. He slid the letter out. I wanted to stop him. I almost did. I took half a step forward, then froze. He started reading. His face didn't move at first. Just his eyes. I watched them scan down the page, then back up. His jaw clenched. He looked like someone reading something he wasn't sure was meant for him. He didn't say anything. He just folded the pages up slowly, like they might fall apart, and slid them back into the envelope. Let's take a break, he said, standing. I nodded, but I didn't move. He walked down the attic stairs. I sat on a box and stared at the floor. I already knew what it said. I found the letter 10 years ago, the week after Dad died. I was going through his desk, helping Mom sort out the bills and insurance papers. It was stuck under a folder of bank statements. I saw the handwriting and froze. I knew his writing. It was careful, not rushed. Even the way he curled the Y in my children made my chest hurt. I opened it. I didn't even think about asking Jason if we should read it together. He was at college and part of me didn't want to share it. I wanted something from Dad that was just for me. But when I read it, I felt cold. Not because of what it said about me. He barely mentioned me. Almost the whole letter was about Jason. He wrote that he loved us. That he wished he'd done some things differently. Then the tone changed. He said Jason had always been a strong presence. That he was smart and quick and good at talking his way out of things. But then he said something else. I worry about Jason's temper. About how he never learned to take responsibility. I worry he sees control as love. I hope one day he realizes that hurting people isn't the same as being strong. I read that sentence 4 times. My hands were shaking. Because I remembered everything. The shouting matches with Mom. The nights Jason came home drunk in high school and punched the pantry door. The way he made me feel like I had to shrink when he was in a bad mood. But everyone acted like he was just going through something. Even Mom. Especially Mom. She'd say he's under pressure. He's figuring things out. And then she'd send me to calm him down. But in that letter, Dad saw it. Not all of it, but enough. I folded the pages, put them back in the envelope, and just stared at it. I didn't feel sad. I felt vindicated. So I hid it. I told myself I'd give it to Jason eventually. Maybe when we were older, when things had settled. But the truth was, I didn't want him to read it. I didn't want him to have that last moment with Dad. Not when mine had been so quiet, so ordinary. I remember the last thing Dad ever said to me. I was brushing crumbs off the couch. He looked over and said, "You're a good kid. You know that?" And that was it. He never said goodbye. Jason wasn't even there. I didn't mean to forget the letter. But life happened. I moved out, got married, got divorced. Mom started forgetting things and I had to help more. Jason showed up again, all helpful, all calm, talking like he'd figured it all out. He never brought up the past. He never apologized for the years he scared the hell out of me. He just acted like he'd grown up. Like the slate was clean. And maybe that's why I couldn't give him the letter. Because I didn't want him to read it and say, "That's not who I am anymore." I didn't want him to move past it before he ever admitted it was real. So I left it in the attic. And now, 10 years later, he found it. And he thinks Mom hid it. That she read it, got angry, and shoved it away. Maybe it's easier for him to believe that. And maybe it's easier for me too. Because the truth is, I read it first. I saw what it said about him. And I chose to hide it. Not to protect him. Not even to protect Mom. I did it because for once, Dad saw what I saw. And I didn't want to let Jason have that. Jason didn't say anything about the letter for a week. We finished cleaning out the attic. The trunk went back in the corner. He took the letter with him. I noticed that, but I didn't ask. I just let him carry it out in a small plastic bag like it was nothing special. I figured he'd bring it up later. Maybe he was still processing. Maybe he hadn't finished reading all of it. But the silence dragged on. Then I got a text from him one night. "Did Mom ever talk to you about the letter?" I stared at my phone. Not, "Did you know about the letter?" or "Why didn't she give it to us?" Just that. Quiet and simple. I typed back, then deleted what I wrote. I tried again. Then I set the phone down and didn't reply. The next morning, he called. "Can we talk?" he asked. "In person?" We met at this diner near where he lived in Larchmont, halfway between my place and his. The kind of place with brown booths and a jukebox no one uses anymore. He looked different when I got there. Like he hadn't slept much. He had the letter in his hand. He didn't wait long. "I read it all," he said. "I read it 5 times. I nodded. My throat felt tight. "I keep thinking about what it says. About me." He looked straight at me when he said that. I didn't know what he wanted. Forgiveness? Agreement? Denial? I didn't know Dad felt that way. He went on. "I always thought, I don't know, that he respected me." I stayed quiet. Jason leaned back in the booth. He rubbed the corner of the envelope with his thumb. "I keep thinking maybe she was right to hide it." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He gave a small laugh. Bitter. "Mom, if she really opened it and didn't want us to read it, maybe she was protecting me. Or maybe protecting you." I mean, that's the part one keep wondering about. I stared at him. He didn't know. He really thought Mom was the one who hid it. And he was looking at me like he wanted some confirmation, some version of the story that didn't hurt as much. I just nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Maybe." The guilt didn't hit me right away. It came that night when I was back home. I kept thinking about how he'd said protecting you. Like he still saw himself as the one carrying the heavy weight. Like the victim. I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, just holding my coffee, going cold. Because he didn't know what that letter did to me. Not really. He didn't know how it felt to read it at 17, to see all the things Dad never said out loud finally written down, quietly, at the end of his life. And still, even now, Jason made it about himself. A few days later, my cousin Sarah called. She'd been helping sort out Mom's medical stuff. She asked if Jason had mentioned anything about the letter from Dad. I froze. "What letter?" I asked, playing dumb. She paused. "The one he posted about on Facebook." My stomach dropped. I logged in and went straight to his page. There it was. A long post. Public. Dozens of comments. He didn't share the letter word for word. But he talked about it. Talked about finding it in the attic. About how it hurt. How he thought Mom hid it because she couldn't handle what Dad said. And then this line. "I guess I'll never know the full story. But I forgive her. She was doing the best she could." That's what broke me. Not the forgiveness. But that he'd turned it into his story. His pain. His redemption arc. No mention of me. No question about what I might have known. Just a one-man reflection framed for sympathy. People commented things like, "So brave to share this, and your dad probably just didn't know how to show love." And Jason replied to everyone. That was the moment I realized something sharp and ugly. He would never see it. Not the truth. Not what Dad was really saying. Not what it meant that I found the letter first and chose to keep it. And worse, if he ever did find out the truth, he'd spin that too. He'd say I was bitter, or jealous, that I robbed him of closure. He'd turn it into something I did wrong. And maybe he wouldn't be entirely wrong, because I did keep it from him. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't believe him. 2 weeks passed. I didn't call. He didn't call. That should have been the end of it. Then I got an email. Not from Jason. From a woman named Elena. She said she was a journalist. Small-time local magazine. She'd seen Jason's Facebook post and wanted to do a piece on letters left behind. Thought it might resonate with others grieving parents. She asked if I'd be open to talking too. For balance. I closed the email. I should have deleted it. Instead, I replied, "No thanks." The next day, Jason texted me. "Hey, just a heads up. That reporter might reach out to you. I didn't give her your info, she just found it. Thought it might be good to share the story. Hope that's cool." That's when something in me cracked. Because it wasn't a story. Not to me. It wasn't something you wrapped in music and quotes and published in a glossy magazine. It was a secret. A secret I'd kept because I thought it would protect something. I wasn't even sure what anymore. Dad's memory, maybe. Or my version of it. But now Jason was turning it into content. I tried to forget about it. But the story went live the following week. He sent me the link. The headline, "A Father's Last Words," the letter that changed everything. It was worse than I expected. He talked about how he and Dad didn't always see eye to eye. How he had a reckless youth. How he was trying now to be a better man. He mentioned me only once. My younger brother, and I processed it differently. He's more private. I respect that. That sentence felt like a knife in the ribs. Because it wasn't about respect. It was about ownership. He was claiming a story that wasn't his alone. One I'd lived with for a decade in silence. That same night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went back to Mom's house. The realtor hadn't listed it yet. The lockbox was already on the door, but I still had a key. I climbed back up into the attic. Same musty air. Same boxes. I pulled out the trunk again. Moved the photo albums. Dug through until I found the folder I'd put the letter in 10 years ago. The original hiding spot before the roof leak, before I panicked and moved it. The folder was still there. But something else was too. A notebook. Dad's old journal. I'd never noticed it before. It was wedged under the bottom of the trunk. Stuck to the floor by some melted wax from an old candle. I pulled it out and sat cross-legged in the dust. Most of it was boring. Appointments, reminders, a list of books he wanted to read. Then I found a page with our names at the top. Jason, strong but reckless. Will learn the hard way. I wish I could have reached him better. Me, steady. Quieter. I think he sees more than he says. I hope he stays soft. I closed the book. I couldn't breathe for a minute. It was the first time I'd seen myself written down like that, seen me in his words, not just Jason. And it broke something open in me. Because maybe the letter wasn't the only truth. Maybe it wasn't even the most important one. That weekend I saw Jason. He invited me to dinner. Said he wanted to check in. I showed up, sat at his table, and watched him pour drinks like we were friends. "I'm thinking of writing more," he said. "Maybe even a book." "A book?" I repeated. "Yeah, like about Dad. About the letter. About grief. I don't know. People seemed to connect with it." He smiled like it was some gift he'd been given. I didn't say anything. Because what I wanted to say was, you didn't find the truth. You just found the version that made you look good. So no, I never told my brother I was the one who opened that letter first. I let him keep his version, the one where Mom was the villain and he was the son who finally understood. Because the truth? It wouldn't change anything. He'd twist that too. He always does. And maybe that's what Dad saw, even at the end. Maybe that's why he wrote what he did. Not to hurt him, but to finally say it out loud. I just wish he'd said something about me sooner. Before I became the one left holding the silence.